Okay. Good morning, friends. Thanks so much for being here and joining us in the Zoomosphere. If you could please introduce yourself in the chat with the name of your organization, that'd be lovely. My name is Allison Campbell. I do local history services here at the Washington State Historical Society. And as I mentioned, many of you I know well, and some of you I'm meeting for the first time. So thanks so much for joining us for this session. We are recording it. The recording will be put on our Heritage Outreach YouTube channel. So if it's something that you'd like to share with your colleagues, your fellow board members, it'll be easily available there. Before we jump into our continuing conversation about America 250, I just wanted to mention a few other upcoming programs that we have, all on Zoom. On April 1st at 10 a.m., we are having a session mostly for folks who work with collections. If your organization has a collection, join us for a conversation about how to assess risk to your collection from impacts of climate change, and then how to kind of develop strategies and make plans to mitigate those risks. So if you lose sleep worrying about, I guess let's see, here in Tacoma, we worry about the mountain blowing, we worry about tsunamis. We also worry about non-climate related impacts like the train that goes by right outside our door. But if those are sort of some of the things that you want to kind of learn more about how to better prepare your organization for wildfires, all of that, definitely join us for April 1st. And then this is the second session in a whole month-long series about America 250. So last week we met and just talked about some of the statewide initiatives and national initiatives that organizations can participate in. If you missed that, no problem. It's on our YouTube channel, and I'll share that link in my follow-up email. Today we're going to talk about sort of meeting your community where they are, kind of outreach related to America 250, and you know, really nuts and bolts of things like tabling at community festivals and that sort of thing. Next week, my colleague Alethea Whitman will be here to talk about, you'll notice a theme, to talk about really kind of understanding and engaging new members of your community that maybe historically your museum has not engaged with, to kind of bring them into conversations around America 250, and then beyond, right? We hope that these are relationships that will carry your organization forward in the work that you're doing. But sort of, Alethea is going to talk more specifically about, like, what do we mean when we say community, and who are these people, and how well do you know them, and who in your community might know them that you should get to know, and all of that kind of thing. And then on the 25th, my colleague Dylan will be here to kind of talk about that last piece in this whole kind of community-centered puzzle, which will be some very specific nuts and bolts tools for surveying your community, gathering community feedback, whether you're doing that online, in social media polls, or with a clipboard and a paper survey, or you know, all the different ways that you can kind of hear from your community, right? Incorporate their voice into the work that you're doing and make sure that you're really meeting their needs. And all of this is designed around sort of helping organizations leverage America 250 to really, you know, shine a spotlight on the work that we all do. And then, but also hopefully all of these things will kind of help your organization endure and grow and build deeper relationships and all of that. So it's kind of, nothing that we talk about in this space is kind of limited to that 2026 moment. We're really hoping that all of these things will be useful to your organization for years to come. So I think that's all my business. If you've just joined us, if you could just let us know who you are in the chat, that would be great. This is a smaller group and it's going to be very interactive. So I want to just acknowledge right off the bat, there's nothing that we're going to talk about today that you all don't have experience doing in your communities. And so I'd love to invite you to share ideas, things that have worked well. It's going to be pretty nuts and bolts. So feel free to raise your digital hand, or if your camera is on, you can raise your actual physical hand, or just unmute and chime in. We're pretty informal here. So let me share my screen, and I'm going to give a very, very brief review of what we talked about, last week, just to kind of set the stage. Going to go real fast through that. And then can everybody see my screen? Yep, great. Thanks, Sharon. Okay. So this is sort of out of many one what we're calling our invitation to local history museums, the opportunity that we're presenting as a way to participate in America 250. But these first few slides are just very general America 250 kind of facts and figures and info. And you may have heard this once or twice already. And so I'm going to go quickly. If you want more of all of this, you can listen to last week's session for sure. Just a reminder of who our team is, right? My colleague, Jay, Dylan, Alethea, and then very importantly, Lorraine, who is our specific America 250 coordinator. I will send you these slides or a link to the slide deck so you have all of our contact information. Also, because I know our team has grown really quickly and significantly, which is awesome. So I kind of just did a little cheat sheet of sort of generally what folks on the team work on, so you know who to contact. You know, America 250, right? 250 is kind of a strange number. It's not 300, it's not 200. We really hope that you all and your communities will choose to acknowledge and commemorate the 250th anniversary of the signing of the Declaration of Independence, largely so that we can talk about history. We can spend some time getting folks excited about history. And yes, there's opportunities to talk about the Revolutionary War and the Revolutionary period and what that means to the history of the United States. But in general, you know, being here in Washington, we don't have battle sites and we don't have some of those very obvious ways to connect to the anniversary of the signing of the Declaration of Independence, but we have lots of exciting ways to just remind folks that a lot of history has happened in their community, in our state, and let's talk about it. Let's spend some time thinking about it. There is a statewide commission that was created by the state legislature. It is chaired by the lieutenant governor, and there are some themes that commission has adopted, that committee has adopted really quickly. These are sort of the themes that are guiding our work here at the state level. You can tap into them as much or as little as you want, right? Some of these may resonate more with you or in different ways with you than how we're kind of thinking about them. But generally, those three themes, big, broad themes, are we the people, the power of place. We're such a diverse geography in our state, right? So that's sort of an exciting thing to dig into, the uniqueness of Washington and how we've built our identity around the landscape, which is very cool, and the specific places that we identify with. And then the work that you all are doing. We're really hoping that on a statewide level, we can get people excited and interested in history work, right? Literally your collections and the way you interpret those collections. Let's spend this time being really transparent about how history works and what role your organizations play in preserving that history for generations to come. So really quickly, I know you might want to be digging into some of this more, and there will be lots more opportunities to talk about that. This is the slide I keep forgetting to include, and so going forward, I will not forget. When we talk about 2026, a couple of things. At a state level, we are using the word commemoration. We heard from lots of constituents. Our elected officials have heard from lots of constituents that we can't simply celebrate this moment because history is really complicated, right? And the founding of the United States meant very good things for some people and meant, you know, traumatic things for other groups of people. And we certainly here in Washington have an expectation that we work closely with our tribal partners and folks for whom the creation of the United States had lasting negative impact. So commemoration, I personally think the word commemoration makes room for both celebration and reflection. So I'm cool with it, but people in your community may have different feelings about that word. So this is where listening to your community is going to kind of come in. And I just wanted to be really clear because some people I know are like, oh my gosh, January 1, 2026, that's less than 12 months away. I'm not going to be ready. That's soon. Yes, it is soon. But we are looking at the commemorative season as Flag Day through Constitution Day. This is, as you know, here on the west side of the state anyway, our peak season when the rain has stopped and people are out doing things and visiting museums, and when a lot of our county fairs happen and all of that. So as you're mentally thinking, this is how the state is kind of bookending our commemorative season. You may choose to do some programming before or after. What we really want to encourage folks to do is if there's a signature event that your organization does every year, and maybe it's in May or it's October, if it falls in 2026, you might want to theme it around America 250. It's not going to be that much extra work for you. You're already doing this big event, but how can you kind of tweak it to connect to maybe some of the themes, something like that. And if it falls outside of this period, no biggie, right? This is just sort of for our own kind of timeline and our own planning around this, but you may find that you're going to be ready to start commemorating, celebrating, earlier in the season, or you want to run it straight through 2026. But for some reason, I was having a lot of trouble remembering these dates. So I put them in writing. They're on the slide. We'll not forget. Okay. Really quickly, I'm also going to run through these sort of 5 easy steps to participate in this particular initiative. I'm not going to go into any one of these steps in too much detail because we're going to kind of expand the conversation over the next few weeks. But if you have questions about any of this, you are always welcome to email me and let me know. I'm going to make sure I have my chat visible too, just in case anybody needs to throw something in there. So definitely, if this feels like a big blur and rushed and too much information at one time, please reach out to me afterwards, and I'm happy to jump on a call or have an email exchange to clarify any of this. But essentially, what we're hoping organizations will opt into is a statewide exploration of the American experience through objects, images, and artwork from Washington museums. We say Washington museums, maybe you're not a museum. We've talked to Main Street programs, and I know the DAR is here, and you may not have a collection. But I think that we are thinking very broadly and liberally about this project and want to include as many people as possible. Our work generally tends to focus on supporting museums, right? So museum collections are something we spend a lot of time thinking about, but there are lots of other ways to access this initiative creatively. So happy to talk to you about that one-on-one as well. So let's see. Step 1, easy, become a partner, right? If your organization, it's not really meant for individuals, meant for organizations. If you become an official 250 partner, you are in the loop. You will get emails from us with, additional opportunities, ideas about how other communities are planning for 250. So this is really the best way to make sure that you are in the know about what's happening across the state. So step 1 to participate in Out of Many Ones is to become a partner. Step 2 is to spend some time thinking about those themes, getting together a group of your volunteers, your staff, ideally some community members, right, that you engage with regularly, have them spend some time with your collections and identify 5 objects, images, works of art that you as a group feel kind of represent the American experience. Now, in the last session, we talked a lot more about wow, American experience, that's huge, that's broad. So there are some ideas about how to approach that in the earlier session if you're struggling with that. But I would encourage you just to think about things also that make your community unique, right? We don't want, 200 museums to participate in this and they've all submitted crosscut saws, which for some communities, right, that idea of connecting to labor and industry and all of that is a perfectly great kind of theme of the American experience, but what makes your community really different? Okay, then, and this is the piece that we're going to spend a lot of time talking about in the next couple of weeks, you're going to take those 5 things and you're going to present them in a variety of ways, hopefully, to your public, to your community, and let them essentially vote, right, on what they would like to see as the thing that represents the American experience for your community in 2026. We're going to go into a lot more about how to do this piece, because this is for some groups, you have great relationships with part of your community, right? Like with your members maybe, but how do you kind of expand your circle and your reach to really be more inclusive of everyone in your community? That's going to be a big theme for us. Then once you've decided on the thing, you're going to fill out a little form on our website, on our America 350 website, with a little description of the thing and a statement about how it connects to the American experience. And then hopefully you're going to display it. You're going to put it on exhibit. And then what we're going to do is we're going to use all of this content, all of these amazing things that your community has identified as content for that 2026 year. And so we're going to push them out on our social media. There will be opportunities, hopefully, for us to do some other great work to drive traffic out to see these objects across the state, road trips. And we are hoping to kind of gamify it, where there's sort of kind of scavenger hunt type opportunities for people to see as many as they can, that kind of thing. So we're excited about kind of all the opportunity that this content from all of your communities will provide. Those are the 5 easy steps, right? Some of them easier than others. Because that step 3 is the tricky one, that's the one we're really focusing on, is how to collect that community feedback and make sure you're really connecting with community. So today, what we're going to kind of dig into a little bit is really the kind of more simple nuts and bolts of like showing up in your community. Many of you have physical museums, the community comes to you, and for lots of reasons, you may not always be able to go out into the community. Maybe you're all volunteer run, and that's a big ask, right? For your volunteers to be showing up, doing school programs in the schools or doing library programs. So we're gonna, hopefully encourage you and make it seem, easier, dispel some myths about how to kind of get out and show up where your community is. You guys know your hometowns well, right? You know your communities well, and you probably even just in your personal life have a sense of where people are showing up. Here in Tacoma, farmers markets are huge, right? Really popular. Lots of people there that I don't necessarily see here at our museum, right? But they're there. The mall, don't get me started. I think the mall is a great place to find community members who maybe aren't as familiar with your organization. So what does it look like to do a booth or a table at the mall? Just thinking about sort of, what are the big community events where people are really showing up? Maybe you're already tabling at some of these, and you can just kind of theme that around 250 in 2026. We have this love for the National Lentil Festival in our office, just the very fact that it exists. So I think we may have to do a big road trip to the Lentil Festival next year. This Quincy kind of just thumbnail that I pulled off the town website. A lot of these I found by Googling either the town or the county, and often they have a page, a public events page. A lot of these, of course, are sponsored by the municipality. The McCleary Bear Festival, which is huge, is sponsored by the town, right? So you're going to find information about that on the town website. But I noticed on this Quincy one that, oh yes, Alex, you can come with us on the road trip. Oh, that was to me directly. Alex wants to come on the road trip to the Lentil Festival. We should rent a bus and we should all go. That would be great. The Quincy one, many of you know Quincy in Central Washington, I guess. Is that Central Western Washington? But look they have Hometown Harvest Festival, and then it's written in Spanish here. And that, to me, says that this might be a good opportunity to connect with folks in our community that maybe haven't already connected with the museum, right? It also tells me that I should probably have some materials in Spanish at my booth, right? So there's all sorts of kind of clues and in kind of the information that you can gather as you're doing research about where to kind of show up and meet your museum. Does anybody want to unmute and share kind of what events they have kind of historically tabled at and where they've managed to kind of meet some new community members? You can just unmute. I can't really see everybody very well. Let me see if I can do this. Oh, sorry. I can only see a few people at a time. Yeah, Dolly.
Yeah, we've had good luck at the farmers market. We meet a lot of new people to the community. Like it seems like
Yeah,
you move to Moses Lake, you unpack your U-Haul, and then the first thing you do is hit the farmers market. So,
love
um,
it.
lots of families with children, so that's an
Yeah,
awesome place. And we do, we do festivals, we do the fair. One of the things we struggle a little bit with is capacity because we
yeah,
are a smaller staff. So sometimes we have to lean on museum or on our volunteers to help with those events. And there's always that sort of making sure that you train them right to get what you
yeah,
want out of the effort. You don't want them to just go there and sit there and play on their phone the whole time. You want them to interact with people. So
yeah,
um, you know, yeah.
yeah. How many sort of events would you say that y'all table at in a year, roughly?
So we usually do four-ish, four to
Hmm.
five-ish farmers markets. So we try to hit like at least one a month through the summer. And then the fair and festival. So probably between 10 and 15. Anytime I'm asked, I'll go out to a civic group, or as the last time we had an opportunity like that, Anne was the one who went. So like the Kiwanis, the Lions,
Hmm.
the Ruritan, like whoever your social groups are, they always need speakers for their meetings.
Yeah,
And it's a really good opportunity to promote what you're doing at the moment.
yeah, for sure. Another question: does the farmers market typically comp you? Do you have to pay for the booth, or do they provide it complimentary?
Well, little
Oh.
drama. So for the first couple of years, we were considered we are not a 501(c)(3). We're a unit of local government, but we are a not-for-profit. So they folded us. The market manager was like, "Yeah, you can come for free, no problem." And then they got a new market manager, and all of a sudden they started charging us, which I found
Mm.
supremely unfair because they get a sweetheart deal with our parks department to use one of our local parks. And I'm like, why are we paying you $50 when you are getting so much in-kind support from the city? Like, we should be able to come and do a table for
So
free.
there were
We're
some
not,
negotiations that had to
yeah,
happen.
we're not selling anything. So this year, when we negotiated our contract with them as the city, I was like, can we
Yeah,
please have a table? Can we have our free table back? So I made
good.
us think about that and got it back in.
Good. Yeah, yeah. So I think for just to note for folks, and I'll talk more about this when we get to county fairs in a second, but often the farmers markets or a lot of these big public events that are being kind of sponsored or hosted or organized by your city will give you complimentary booth space if you're a nonprofit or a very low rate. So be sure that you're asking about that.
And
Does,
one little one too.
yeah.
If your chamber does like a business expo or a business after,
Mm.
that can be a good place to,
Oh,
especially
great.
to like chat up those businesses and like, hey, we need some sponsorship money. So.
Great. I'll add that to my list. Yeah, sort of a business expo with the Chamber of Commerce. Yeah. Um, Anybody else have any like great local opportunities where you feel like you've really gotten some bang for your buck and your effort and being out there doing some activities? Got to meet a lot of new people. Well, let's jump ahead to the next big opportunity, and this is one that we really hope to kind of help facilitate for y'all. Um, County fairs are a big deal, and they happen all over our state. I'm sure some of you are already tabling or presenting information at your county fair. Our 250 coordinator, Lorraine, has been putting the pedal to the metal and visiting every county in the state. And she has spoken to many of the the county fair coordinators, and has mentioned that the local museums in the county may be interested in booth space for the fair. And so there's lots of excitement from folks who are organizing these events to really theme them around 250 in 2026. Again, taking stuff we're already doing, but like putting that 250 label over it. And so we're really hopeful that we can help, if you have not connected with your county fair before, help connect you and make sure that you can access some of that booth space, which will hopefully be complimentary. I will include in my follow-up email to you, this is they don't have the 2026 fair dates out yet, but just for you to see, because they typically fall around the same dates every year, I'll share the link to this 2025 calendar that will, and they have contact information and all of that. So, we'd love to see everybody kind of out at the county fairs if possible. And it's something you might want to do this summer, right? In anticipation for, maybe you've already gotten your 5 things that you want to present to your community, and this is just a great way to kind of like query a big group of folks who aren't necessarily already engaged in your museum or part of your museum world. I'm gonna, just to pick up, I was gonna mention it later, but to pick up on Dolly's point about capacity, sometimes these fairs run for a week or 2, and that's a lot for a volunteer-run organization or an organization with a small staff to kind of, have people there at the booth all the time. So think about other either cultural nonprofits in your community that you could maybe partner up with to share the booth, and then you just take half the days, or you take some of the days, they take some of the days. You can have your materials out all of the time. You can kind of train their volunteers. Here are some talking points about the museum, but you don't have to actually have volunteers there. You can kind of partner to share those duties. I know our colleagues in Grays Harbor have had a lot of success doing that, where all the museums in the whole county each take a day, basically, and that's how they get through the whole week. And everybody has all their information out there all the time, but then you kind of get to spotlight your organization one day. So that's one idea to think about. So we're going to kind of talk about sort of the nuts and bolts, and this is a real kind of nuts and bolts kind of session. But a lot of you have been doing really successful tabling at public events, introducing your organization to folks in really creative ways. But tabling at a public event is kind of unique and tricky, right? You only have a few minutes, maybe a few seconds with people as they're passing by. How do you get their attention? How do you do something that's memorable so that they'll want to find out more about your organization? So these are just some super, super basics, as Dolly mentioned, right? Almost any public event that you're at, it's going to be a lot of families. So just make sure that you're considering, you don't want like necessarily a bead, like an activity with a lot of small parts or something that, little kids can kind of get into. Just kind of think about as you're planning out your table, like what will be engaging for people of all different ages. Make it eye-catching, make it interactive, and then have a takeaway. And we know swag is expensive. Stickers are great. They're pretty cheap. But even if, we joke all the time about button makers, if you invest in one thing, you can invest in a button maker, and then you can take images from your collection, maybe even, and people could choose one and make a button that they can take with them. And that's pretty affordable, low impact. We do a lot of button making here at the State History Museum. I pulled up some pictures of some booths to just kind of talk about. None of these are in Washington, so we don't have to worry that we're, critiquing any of our colleagues and friends. But I would just love to hear what some of this, and I'm not presenting these as optimal examples. I think that there are strengths and sort of opportunities in all of them, but I would just, if you want to come off mute and share sort of some of the things that you noticed that you think would be great or doesn't seem very strong in terms of tabling. What are some of the things that you notice in these pictures? You can just unmute. I can't see everybody, so if you're raising your hand, I'm probably missing it.
I'll say I'm noticing some black and white pictures of people who I don't know who they are.
Yeah.
So I'm not particularly drawn in by that. On the Historical Society one, I see it looks like it's a tote bag, but it's not clear if that's like swag that they're giving away or selling or what's happening with that. And then I see it looks like they've got like an open book on the table and some displays, which might be interesting to look at if I were to walk closer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thanks, Erin. Yeah, for sure. The black and white photos might catch your eye. They might not be enough to get you to walk over to the booth, unless they're people that are pretty well known in your community. But that's kind of a stretch. Yeah, it's unclear if they're selling. Lots of folks, and if you have the infrastructure to sell things at your booth, you can often do that. And maybe that tote bag's for sale, or maybe you can win it in some kind of activity, right? Yep, open books. You really have to come up close to engage. And it looks like, I bet these are like old issues of maybe their newsletters that they're giving out or something, possibly. Yeah. I'm sure that if I had to read Anne's mind, she's looking at this other picture, like, are those collections items that are just out at the fair that people can touch? And maybe they're not. Maybe they're things that are just in a teaching collection that are specifically not accessions into their collection so that they can take them kind of out and about, which is awesome in that case, right? And it's great if you can if you have access to those materials that you don't have to be so precious with because they're not actually in your collection, then by all means take them out. Yeah. Anything else that jumps out at you here?
For me, there's not a lot of diversity.
Mm-hmm. I mean, these are our pioneers, right? Yeah. Yep. Here's some other ones. This picture isn't very good, but I was real interested in morbid trivia. I don't know what that is, but it seemed interesting. That might get me to walk over. What else do you notice here?
I'm a sucker anytime I can stick my head in and take a picture.
Yeah.
And that kind of looks like that's happening on the right side. Yeah.
Yep. People love to take pictures, and it's not something that you have to facilitate, right? Everybody's got a camera in their pocket now. Just you got to provide the context, the fun stuff. Yeah. Anything else?
They're also just kind of busy, like the one on the left. There's just no real organization, a lot to look at. I don't even know where to start.
Yeah, it's a lot, right? They've got the kind of Revolutionary War. I picked the one on the left because the volunteers or staff are standing up. Ideally, and I know it's hard, especially with our volunteer, our volunteers, it is really, I am much less likely to walk up to a booth if the volunteers behind the table or the people behind the table are just kind of sitting back and relaxing, right? I'm much more likely to come over if they are standing up and look like they're excited to engage me. And this comes with capacity, right? I mean, people need breaks. You cannot stand for an 8-hour event, right? So, having people sign up for maybe shorter shifts, that kind of thing, or maybe taking turns. I'll stand for the next half hour and you have a seat, right? I mean, you don't have to all be standing, but one person be standing at the booth. That is kind of a good kind of energy that I think will bring people in. So that's sort of why I picked that one too. Yeah.
It's helpful to have like an elevator pitch.
Oh, we're going to get to that, Dolly. Yes. Your 30-second, we're going to practice that at the end. Your 30-second elevator pitch, right? Because you might only have a few seconds as somebody's walking from the, fried butter booth to the, funnel cake booth. You might only have a few seconds to get their attention and to engage them, right? And so, yes, we'll talk about elevator pitches more for sure. Okay, so these are just some things that I pulled out because I think sometimes, you all have great information. You maybe have some, handouts or whatever about your museum, blowing up photographs, or like it's not that expensive to get the life-size cutouts of people from your collection that people can take pictures with. These are just a few other kind of that interactive piece of what people kind of remember and what gets people to linger at your booth a little bit longer, which means you'll have more time to share information. I really loved this think tank. Finish this sentence. In the future, the Akron Art Museum should, and then there's just a bunch of post-its, right? Now, you do have to monitor that. There will probably at some point in the course of a very busy public event have something inappropriate put on there. So make sure you're doing an occasional pass by. Post-its are like the cheapest way to get folks to interact with any kind of content, right? So think about this could just be, a big piece of chart paper that you have on a easel with a question, or share a memory, or what word comes to mind when you think about, or whatever, is a really fun thing. And you can kind of think about, I mean, this could be framed around your America 250 kind of American experience query for the community, right? Like, what words come to mind when you think about the American experience? And be prepared for all sorts of things, right? You know, a quick and easy way to kind of collect thoughts from the community. Yeah, photo booth, Emily, I kind of include some photo booth props, right? This is not really, this is like the Jane Austen props. I couldn't find any Revolutionary War era, like 1700 photo booth props. You might have to make your own. These, I guess, kind of are. You know, having some kind of game. We always talk about, like, I think I had in this, right? The people love to spin a spinning wheel. I don't know what it is. It's something visceral about who we are as humans, maybe something in our Neanderthal DNA that we just love to spin the spinning wheel. And you know, you can buy them really cheap, and you can dry erase them, so you can put different things on them. We always take our spinning wheel out to events here. But other games, you know, give us your email address, guess how many Skittles are in this, and we'll email you if you win. And then you can also have a little statement on there that those folks can be added to your mailing list, right? You can collect data in kind of a fun way. When I worked at Fort Nisqually here in Tacoma, we did a lot of public events, and just simple games and toys as a way to kind of entertain kids while you have a conversation with the parents about upcoming events, things that their family might enjoy. We have this checkers board at the museum, and I've often thought you could easily do that, maybe not at like a really jam-packed public event, but people also just need to sit down a little bit. So depending on how much space you have for your booth, you could put 2 camp chairs and put a checkers board out. It's a period appropriate game, right? But give people a chance to like sit down and engage in something. You don't want it to, don't put chess out, that is too long. They will sit there for, you know, an hour, but checkers is quick, gives them a chance to catch their breath, and families will engage in it together. This game, Shut the Box, if you don't know, you can buy them on, you know, wherever you buy your games. They're not expensive at all, and it is a game that has been around for hundreds of years. It's a great math game, you know, definitely period appropriate to the 1700s, but still easy to get your hands on and find today, but unique things that kids won't really have interacted with. So think about what else? What are some other ideas of sort of simple things that you've done at your tables to kind of make them interactive or memorable for people? Anybody have any? Yeah, Emily.
Yeah, we've done the spinner. Very, very popular. I think what we have learned from it is that we did a quiz, and then if they got the answer right for like Martin Luther King Day and things like this, then they got a piece of candy. We saw the same kids back many, many times. So we had to kind of monitor that. And also it takes, if you do something like a quiz, it takes a lot of staff effort. You have to be really, so that diminishes from other conversations you might want to be having.
Right.
But we have to rethink how to use it, because it really, really is an attraction.
Yeah, the spinners are great. And that's a really good, I like sort of what you shared there, thinking about how sort of labor and time intensive an activity is, because again, you're really only going to get a very short amount of time with folks. And so if your volunteers are tied up in facilitating something that's a longer experience, that means they're missing a lot of people that they could be interacting with. I'll share that one, we table at Tacoma Pride every year, and one year our education staff put together a bingo card of just things that you would typically see at a Pride festival. So like people dancing or feather boa, or, you know, very common things that you would see out there at the event, and then people could bring them back for a prize. So that was kind of fun. I mean, you could probably think of, you know, things at your local community events that would be common that people would definitely see. Yeah, anything else? Any other ways that people have kind of jazzed up their presentations at these events? Well, if you think of any, you can throw them in the chat. just a few final reminders. We are really noticing here that people don't want to take paper flyers. They're less likely now to take them because you don't want to have a bag to put them in. You collect a ton of paper. Like swag, they will always take, right? Sticker, a pen, branded hand sanitizer, they will always take. But all the paper of like your list of upcoming events, you might have some, but QR codes, they're back, they're not going anywhere. So you might just have, one of those little plexi, stands where you have a QR code there and invite people to just click it on their phone and find out. It can link directly to your museum website. It could link to a poll to vote on one of the 5 objects. You can use it in all sorts of ways. And if you don't know how to create a QR code, reach out to me. Super easy. Lots of ways to do it. I mentioned partnering with other organizations to maximize your capacity. Again, if it's a multi-day festival and you just don't have enough volunteers to staff a booth, maybe you join up with somebody else. Collect information. So, you can have people opt in to leaving their email address with you if they want to find out about upcoming events. Just be sure to follow up. Like, make sure that if there's always complete the work cycle on that and make sure that all of that information does end up in your Excel spreadsheet or your database or however you track all of those. And just the basics of being outside, likely in the summer, right? Make sure that your volunteers have sunscreen and snacks and that you're planning for somebody to relieve them so that they can take appropriate breaks and that kind of stuff. That's always me. I always volunteer to I'll come, I'll be on call and I can come and relieve you so you can grab lunch or whatever, that kind of thing. Oh, yes. So here we go, the elevator speech to Dolly's earlier point. This is something that I would encourage you to be intentional about thinking about. It can be overwhelming at events that are very busy, and you kind of want to get a lot of information out there very quickly, and you don't always get the most important information out there, right? Or the key stuff that you want people to walk away thinking about or remembering about your organization. So, what are you going to say to people as they walk up to your booth? Even on the friendly sort of hey, are you having a great day? Or have you ridden any rides yet? Well, however, think about it, right? How you're going to kind of be welcoming on the approach, and then how you're going to get the information out. So I was thinking, and we have a few minutes here, maybe just take 2 or 3 minutes and jot down maybe some bullet points or the key, and then maybe somebody will be brave and want to give us their elevator speech for their organization. So I'm just going to shut up for a few minutes. Maybe you already have yours down and pat. But if you don't, maybe think about what are the key things you'd want to let people know about if you only had a few seconds to talk to them. Anyone want to be brave and try their elevator pitch out on us?
I'm an extrovert. I'll go.
Yay, thanks, Dolly. All right, let's hear it.
So if it's a group with small children, I have kind of two different approaches. If it's a group with children, I say, hey, have you been to Free Family Saturday at the museum? And, depending on their response, yes, no, we have a museum, what? Then you kind of go from there. It's fun, it's free, it's the first Saturday of every month from 12 to 2 p.m. Just bring the family down and have a great time. Check out our new gallery show, and it just kind of gives you an entry point. If they're older, I'm like, hey, have you been to the museum lately? Or, and then depending on the response, wait, what? We have a museum? You just kind of go from there. Like, yeah, we do art shows, we have history exhibits. Our tagline is sort of art, history, culture. And then, we usually have something to hand them. People do still take paper flyers around here. So our latest gallery opening postcard, or an upcoming a class flyer or something like that. So
that's great. Do you find, Dolly, that most people like know where you are, or when you say?
Not really.
Yeah, you guys are kind of tucked in there in the city building. Yeah.
So we have some good landmarks. We're in the Civic Center. If they don't know what that is, we say, oh, we're right next door to the police station. And that usually is like, ding, everybody knows where the police station is in town.
Yeah. I also love what you said, like, have you been to the museum lately? Certainly what we find, and I'm sure many of you find, is that community members that you encounter out there in the world maybe visited your museum on a school field trip in maybe the 4th grade. They're now an adult with their own family, and so it's probably been a while since they've been back. And so, kind of framing it that way can bring up, often that will lead to some conversations about, oh, do you still have the big metal mastodon, or what, like, it's kind of like, we'll bring back things that people really, for us, it's dusty and dandy, right? Ezra Meeker's oxen that are stuffed in our museum, and seems to be what all the kids remember. And that can be a good entry point. Well, come back, right? We've got lots of exciting things happening, and it's time you come back. Yeah, thank you. I appreciated what you shared too, Dolly, about some of the kind of crafts that you do at your table. I kind of had it's a really great way and pretty accessible way financially sometimes. Like if you're doing some weaving and, a weaving demonstration and you want to invite kids to try it, raffia is not that expensive. Things that you can kind of do, consumables that are pretty affordable. People love that. Okay, we have Lindsay's here. The Schaefer Museum is located in the beautiful Methow Valley of North Central Washington. We house a unique collection of items specific to this region that bring to life the pioneer history of the early 20th century. That's great. And what I like about that is it's very kind of locally situated, right? Unique to a unique collection, right? To that community. That's great. Thank you for sharing. I'll give you just 30 more seconds to see if anybody feels brave. And if not, we can move
on. Can I just say that the previous person, I really liked how they drew the people in with something for them. Like, have you been to the Free Kids Day or whatever? I mean, oh, what's that?
For sure. Yeah. Perfect, Emily. And to just elaborate that on a little bit, like, so much of the work that you all do is about knowing your audience, right? Like, are we creating programs for school kids or for adults or for families? And so even at these kinds of big public events where there are so many different kinds of people and social groups visiting, you still have to kind of read your audience real quick, right? Like, as you see them walking over to you, you got to kind of make some judgment calls on their age and what kinds of programming that you're offering that might interest them. So just always know your audience, right? And we're going to talk more about ways to do that in the next few weeks for sure. But yeah, thanks for mentioning that, Emily. Well, that's really my spiel, and thank you for contributing to my spiel. I know that this is sort of kind of work that many of you are doing in your community, and so hopefully maybe there's an idea or two that you hadn't thought about that could be helpful as you plan for your next sort of season of public events. If your organization is has not been kind of going out into the community, right? Leaving your building and doing programming out in the world, maybe have a plan to just do one next summer, right? Maybe identify one where you think you can get the most bang for your buck, that's the most accessible, that's within your capacity. Maybe it's just a one-day thing. Maybe it's even half day. We have a lot that are just sort of 11 to 4 type things, and give it a try. And I think you'll find you're meeting people who don't know about you, and that's a great way to start building a new audience. Yeah, use a clicker to count engagements. You might find you're communicating with hundreds and hundreds of people in a single day, right? Which is that means your information is really getting out there on a big scale. Yeah, if you have a volunteer who can be clicking people who stop by, that's great. And make notes, right? After you do one of these, get together with your volunteers who participated and think about like what went well, what was a hit, and what was a miss, right? The spinny wheel was a hit. Whatever, they didn't really like this, or nobody seemed that interested in this other thing that we tried. So then you can kind of iterate and improve again and again. And sometimes you might have a volunteer who really kind of likes to take this on. It can be like creating a mini exhibit, right? I keep promising, we will have a panel exhibit that will be downloadable. That's something that you could take out with you on easels. That'll be about America 250, but maybe there are some things that you have that are kind of unique and fun that you can take out that people can touch and handle and see. So I'm just going to open it up for any questions about anything before we wrap up and say goodbye. And I'm actually going to stop sharing so that we can see each other's faces. Is there anything else? Any anecdotes? Any wins or misses or big successes or horror stories that you want to share from staffing a public event?
I think one for us is we used to do the Wanapum days, but we were so far out. We were getting kids from the Tri-Cities, and so it wasn't worth our efforts because it was groups that weren't going to ever come to Moses Lake on their own. So
that's a great calculation.
So I guess when you do pick your outreach, just make sure it is close enough to your area that people are going to, connect the dots and come, because it's amazing how many at these events we still meet people who've never been to the museum. They've lived here our whole lives and never been in. So
Yep. And I also loved Dolly's point. Thank you. Just kind of think about the reach, and that it's in sort of within your service area. You might want to focus on those events. Also, just the idea of meeting so many of your communities. I hear this all the time when I'm out visiting places like McCleary or Schaefer Museum is in Winthrop. Yes, thank you, Lindsay. I know Suzanne and I had conversations about this kind of during and after the pandemic. So many new community members moving into your town, right? And it's an interesting and fun kind of challenge to think about how to engage newcomers to the history of this place that they're just stepping foot in. And I think that these big public events is a great place because often those folks are trying to kind of get a hold on this new place that they've moved to. If they've moved there with kids, it's going to be their kids' hometown, right? So kind of recognizing that there's an opportunity there to kind of grow an audience of people who are just moving to town, right? Who might not naturally feel inclined to seek out the museum, but could certainly benefit from feeling rooted in that local history. Sure. Yeah. Sorry, I don't know why Winthrop based on that. Yeah. Anything else anybody wants to throw out into the universe here around this kind of thinking about getting out in the community?
Just a side note, I wanted to, Anne, you're very fortunate, and your new city manager, Rob Carlinzi, who will be starting soon, is our Kenmore's former city manager, and he was a huge supporter of the Kenmore Heritage Society. So I'm delighted for you because he's wonderful, and I think you're going to really enjoy working with him. He's been great with working with us. We don't have a physical space, the Kenmore Heritage Society, so we do partner with the city in a lot of different events, and and quite often have a table and crafts, and like Emily said, the spinning wheel. Kids love the spinning wheel. Anyway, congratulations to you, I guess.
Well, that's nice to hear, because when I heard Kenmore, I'm like, that sounds familiar for some reason. So
Yeah, but
yeah,
he's
thank
done
you
a
very
lot for
much.
Kenmore. He's done a lot for Kenmore, but yeah.
That is great news.
That's nice to hear.
History-loving,
is.
museum-loving city administrator.
He's just
Woohoo!
really, yeah, he's great. In fact, his wife was on our board for quite some time.
Oh,
So
that's great.
yeah,
Really
Ooh.
good to hear. Thank you.
yeah, you're welcome.
I
Yeah.
know you guys liked your last city manager as well, I think. So hopefully you'll get a good one. Sounds like it. Well, I just want to remind everybody, become a member or a partner. And I'm going to send you an email in a little bit here with the link to do that if you haven't already. And that way you're going to be kind of in the loop on all 250. If you can't join us for our upcoming sessions, or if you need a break from thinking about America 250, that's fine. We will send you the recordings of everything so that you can view them when you're able to. And just always know that you can reach out with ideas and questions as you start talking about this with your boards and your volunteers. Questions might come up or ideas might come up. We would love to hear what kind of you're noodling on. We're kind of putting together kind of a list of like the ideas that are coming out of communities beyond sort of the official initiative. So let's share, let's stay in touch. Thank you for being here today and contributing to this conversation. Have a great rest of your Tuesday. We'll talk to y'all soon.
Allison.
Yeah, take care. Bye.